Great. Thank you all for being here.
As just said, I'm going to do a little intro and then we're actually going to move to a PowerPoint presentation. But I wanted you all to be able to see us first and have us see you. So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Jody Feldman and I manage the Pro Bono program here at Legal Aid. And I am joined today by my colleague Sylvia Soltis, who is a senior staff attorney who also works with the Pro Bono program. And then our star presenters today are Jenny Joseph and Shirley Horn. Jenny's a supervising attorney and Shirley's a senior staff attorney, and they are in our consumer law unit. So we wanted to thank you, obviously, for volunteering to help with this project, helping homeowners apply for the Homeowner Assistance Fund, which just launched last week for DC residents. And so today we're just going to spend about an hour and we're going to try to cover everything that hopefully you will need to know to understand what this program is all about and provide some tools for you to help homeowners apply, determine whether homeowners are eligible, and then if so, help them complete the application process. So just really quickly, I did want to share a little bit for those of you who don't know about Legal Aid generally and our longstanding pro bono partnership with Miller and Chevalier. Some of you may have worked on some of the matters that we have referred already in the past. So we are the largest civil legal services provider here in the district. We have been providing free legal services to low-income persons at no charge for nearly 90 years, 90. So we've been around a while. Sadly, we have not put ourselves out of business in terms of helping everyone who needs legal help. We are a pretty large legal services program. We have dozens of case handling attorneys, including Jenny and Shirley in our consumer law unit. But we also have a robust pro bono program that Sylvia and I work on to complement our in-house attorneys and just be able to serve more folks by referring cases out to private attorneys like yourselves and attorneys in the federal government throughout the city. So we primarily provide direct representation in 4 primary practice areas: rental housing, public benefits, domestic violence and family law, and consumer law, where Shirley and Jenny work. We do also pursue systemic work through impact litigation, advocacy with the DC Council, with DC government agencies. We have an appellate practice. So we do a lot of systemic work as well, but it's mostly informed by the experiences that we come across through our individual representation of folks. As I mentioned before, we do have a long-standing pro bono partnership with you all, and Kitty's been fantastic about helping us identify matters that you and your colleagues would be interested in. And one of the fantastic outcomes of that is that we have been able to refer to your firm a lot of cases where clients need counseling on personal income tax matters, because as a result of the work that we have done at Legal Aid, they have received either significant monetary settlements or monetary awards through litigation. And so as you may know, I know you're not all tax lawyers, but those of you who are will understand that that can have a significant impact, especially for someone who had little to no income before and all of a sudden has a significant monetary award. So we have referred a lot of those types of cases. We also did a really successful project a couple of years ago. Those cases have quieted down a little bit, but we referred many structured settlement cases to you all. And these are cases where our clients come to us and they're like about to sell a structured settlement that they have received as a result of some sort of tort litigation. And the court actually has to approve the sale, but the clients often don't understand how much money they are actually giving up through the sale, because there are these predatory companies, which you may see if you watch any late night TV. They advertise these predatory companies, which will buy your future proceeds from a structured settlement, for pennies on the dollar. And so we at Legal Aid and your colleagues at Miller and Chevalier have done some great work helping to educate clients about what the impact will be if they sell their structured settlement, so that even if they choose to go forward, they understand what the ramifications are, and if not, try to sort of help them out and figure out where else they may be able to find the financial resources that they're looking for that are prompting them to sell their structured settlement. So it's a little in the weeds. If you don't know what a structured settlement is, it's okay. But, but that's been a really great project that we've done with you all too. So one of the overarching principles of all the work that we do at Legal Aid is making sure that our, folks in our community who are eligible for financial benefits, for benefits available from the government, are receiving all of the financial support that they are able to. Needless to say, for low-income folks, that is, very important for them to achieve financial security and stability for themselves and their families. And for persons who are living on very low incomes, even a couple $1,000s a year or a couple $100s a month can really make a significant difference in the standard of living for them and their families. And that's why it's so important. And that brings us to why we're here today. So as you're going to hear a lot more about, the Homeowner Assistance Fund is a special program that is one of the many COVID-related benefit programs that is now available. It's a federal program, but administered through the states and DC. And it is to help homeowners who are behind on mortgage and other related payments. And you'll hear more about that. And we think it's just so important to take advantage of the money, because the money is available and it is a way to help many clients like you'll be working with, particularly persons of color, get caught up, recover somewhat from the financial fallout of COVID, of the pandemic, and be able to stay in their homes. And as you will see when you get to know some of these clients, some of them live in homes that have been in their families for more than one generation. So it is a significant source of generational wealth for them and their family. And this program is hopefully going to be a significant help in making sure that they can stay in their homes. So I am going to stop there, and we are going to start to share our PowerPoint, and Jenny and Shirley are going to proceed to tell you about the HALF program. So thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Okay, so we can just go ahead and advance to our consumer unit slide. Thank you, Sylvia, for running the PowerPoint show today. So just to expand a little bit on what Jody said, I'll just quickly about our consumer law unit here at Legal Aid. So we have two primary practice areas, and those are foreclosure prevention and debt collection defense. And so the sort of overarching goal of our consumer unit practice here at Legal Aid is to preserve our clients' limited income and assets. And a big part of that, obviously, is trying to preserve home ownership where we can. And so that's where this HALF program comes in, and you all come in. And as Jody alluded to, generally, our consumer unit, like our other practice areas at Legal Aid, does have a sort of policy and systemic component to the work that we do. And so a big focus of our unit over the past months and year has been working with the city, and specifically the Department of Housing and Community Development, which is the DC agency that is administering HALF, to try to make sure that the program that they set up is accessible to our client community. And just kind of nuts and bolts of our unit, as you can see on the slides, that's a little snapshot of who we are. We have currently 7 attorneys in the unit and 2 legal assistants. And I think almost all of us at this point are in the process or soon will be working on some HALF applications for our own clients. So we will be doing this alongside all of you. I will go ahead and turn it over to Shirley.
Shirley, you're on mute. Shirley's going to unmute, and we're going to ask everybody else to mute.
You. Sorry about that. HALF, I think it's not an understatement to say that HALF is a once in a generation opportunity for homeowners. It has the potential to really change lives, and not just lives for our present generations, but future generations, and change communities, and hopefully preserve communities and stem the tide of displacement that we are currently seeing in DC. And one of the things that is very striking about DC is the wealth disparity. And you'll see that the wealth disparity between white and Black households in the district is 81 times. And if you look at, Black, and there are other categories as well. As you'll see from the Urban Institute report, it's an even greater disparity. And how can we try to address this wealth disparity, one person, one household at a time? And the Homeowner Assistance Fund offers that possibility. And the people that we're wanting to connect with and that you all will be connecting with and working with directly are people that are trying to hold on to that wealth so that they can keep it for themselves and then for their children and hopefully grandchildren too. So thank you, Sylvia. A troubling trend is that the disparity in homeownership rates is actually widening between Black and white homeowners. And it's widened since 1960, and it's continuing to go in that direction. I mean, I think everyone is familiar with DC, formerly being known as the Chocolate City, somewhere where there was potential in the middle possibility for Black homeownership and growth, and that's obviously changed in recent decades. And so how can we keep our neighbors housed, and how can we avoid them being foreclosed upon and then later on potentially evicted? And half offers an answer. So how many people, how many people are we looking at? So the latest data from the Census Bureau, their housing pulse survey shows that more than 9,000 homeowners are behind on their mortgage payments, and that's in the district alone. And so that's a lot of homeowners who have missed their mortgage payments. And it's an undercount because it doesn't even include people who are behind on property taxes or condo or homeowner association fees. And half is very broad and covers all of those. It covers people who are behind on mortgage payments, property taxes, condos and homeowners fees, and utilities as well, and even equity or low income, limited equity co-ops as well. And among the 9,000 homeowners that are behind on mortgage payments, 75% of them are identify as Black, and they are obviously significantly higher risk of foreclosure. And there's 75% are Black, and then 15% identify as Latinx. So it's a pretty, the impact of COVID, we know both with regard to like the health outcomes and education outcomes, it's really falling on communities of color, and also with regard to homeowners, and the financial impact falling on homeowners and renters of color as well.
Let's dive in now just to start talking about what the program actually provides. So as Jody previewed for you all at the beginning of the presentation, this is really an enormous amount of money that is coming to DC. So it is $50 million in federal funds that are available to help DC homeowners. And as Shirley just said, that includes not only mortgages, but other housing related payments. So condo, HOA fees, homeowners insurance, property taxes, utilities, and internet or broadband payments. So really kind of running the gamut of housing related payments that someone might have. And one really exciting thing about the way that this program is structured, which is different than prior sort of federal relief funds for homeowners, is that it is structured in the form of a grant. And so if your client ends up qualifying for half assistance, they will not have to pay that money back. And so it really is sort of a fresh start, a wealth building tool, because it is not a loan. And finally, just to kind of a basic point, the way the program works is that if someone is awarded assistance, those payments will be made directly to the payee. So the mortgage lender, the condo association, what have you, and not to the homeowner. Okay, so just kind of getting into a little bit more of the specifics of the program. So it's a really generous program in terms of how much funding is available to homeowners who are eligible. homeowners can receive up to $100,000 for reinstatement of past due payments. And they can also potentially qualify for forward payments of up to 3 months or $18,000, whichever is less. And that sort of forward going payment is generally for people who don't have the ability at this moment to sustain their mortgage payment, but they're ideally looking for work and hopefully will have the ability to continue that payment later on. And again, that $100,000 limit for reinstatement that covers all the types of assistance that I just talked about that are sort of housing related, mortgage assistance, condo HOA fees, special assessments, property taxes, homeowners insurance. And then in addition to those sort of property related payments, half can also be used to provide utility assistance in smaller dollar amounts. So you can see on the slide that assistance is available for electricity, gas, and water payments for up to $4,000 and up to $1,000 for internet or broadband services. So, as you're talking with people, I think a lot of people kind of go into this focused on their mortgage, but we want to also be asking about whether or not they're behind on their utilities as well, because they could potentially get relief there too. And then the final point here is that there is a lifetime cap on half assistance of $120,000. So, if you are getting assistance in multiple areas, that's sort of your overall limit. Okay. So we're going to talk about these, or I should say Shirley's going to talk about the eligibility criteria in a bit more detail, but just to kind of go over the 4 most basic points in order to be a candidate for the HALF program. There are these 4 essential criteria. So first, obviously, you must be a district homeowner. Second, you have to have fallen behind on one of these payment categories. Third, you have to be within the program income limits, which vary by household size, and we'll talk about. And then fourth, you have to have experienced a hardship due to COVID-19 since January 21st, 2020. And one really sort of significant thing about this program that we think is great and makes it a really exciting opportunity for our clients is that it is okay and people can be eligible if you had a hardship that began prior to COVID, and you can have been behind on your mortgage or other payments prior to COVID, as long as you can also point to sort of a hardship after that date. And so I think we see many people here at Legal Aid who might have fallen behind before the pandemic, but they were things got worse, right, once the pandemic hit. And so this is a distinction from programs like State EC, which you might have heard of, which did not cover pre-pandemic arrears. HALF can cover pre-pandemic arrears.
And as Jenny mentioned, the eligibility criteria includes that you have to be a district resident, district homeowner, and that the home that you're applying for assistance must have been your primary residence since June 1st, 2021. And the way that they ask for that to be documented can be a valid driver's license. And there may be overlap in the documentation requirements. So there may be some documents that would prove the residency, and then there may be documents that prove identification, and documents might serve both purposes. But residency can be proved with utility bills, with bank statements that come to your home. There's a document checklist that we're including in the helpful links page toward the end of this slideshow that will help guide you and the client through what potential documents you can get together. But one of the documents that can kind of assist with this is if someone is getting pay stubs at their house, and there is a recency requirement, so it has to be within the last 60 days. But with regard to residency, this is often one of the easier ones for folks to satisfy, so long as they don't have any issues with getting mail. And another eligibility criteria is that the homeowner has to have fallen behind on the mortgage, property charges, or utility or internet payments. And that's, again, one that's fairly easy to satisfy in terms of people being able to attest to this issue. And then, but the documentation aspect can sometimes take a minute. So, no, oh, sorry. Please don't hold questions. I mean, I don't know, Jenny, if you have an opinion on this, but I feel like the more people talk, the better.
Yes, go for it, but we don't want to
Then
listen
I
to
have a
ourselves.
question. If we go back to the previous slide, and I'm thinking about a couple of concrete examples here in my own neighborhood here in the district. That this first bullet says you must be a homeowner. A few of my neighbors, for example, their parents, bought the house, owned the house, parents died, and now one of 7 siblings is living in the house. And, the other 6 siblings were also included in the wills, or, the house passed down, without a will. Do they have to have sort of a clear title to the home, or is that not required? And if these types of things are addressed in guidance you're going to give us, you can just say, Greg, wait, read the guidance, and then ask questions.
We were not going to address this specifically in this slideshow, so it's a great question. I'm glad you're asking it. And we see this frequently with errors that, the transfer of title has not been perfected. It is pretty onerous, the process of transferring title after someone's passed. They have to go through probate, and it can take years. And so thankfully, HAF has allowed heirs to apply without needing title to transfer, which is huge. And the link that I just sent, it's included in our helpful links, but I just added it in case people want to refer to it. So on the 3rd page, there's the heirs property documents, and those are the types of documents that people can. So when someone is applying for HAF, they would want to designate that they're not the owner. There is a drop-down menu, and in the drop-down menu, it says something like, I'm the owner, I'm not the owner, I'm an heir of a deceased owner.
Okay.
And so they would select that they're the heir of a deceased owner. And then if there's no will, if there's the will, then uploading a copy of the will and the death certificate is sufficient. If there's no will, then they can upload the death certificate and then documentation of the relationship to the deceased owner. So whether that's a birth certificate or paternity determination or something like that, then that suffices too.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shirley.
And so, yes, with regard to falling behind on payments, and Jenny mentioned this point, but it's kind of worth reiterating, which is that it's fine if they were already behind prior to COVID. So they don't need to have had just the hardships, they don't need to have been current through March 2020. If they had some kind of hardship, financial hardship related to COVID-19, and if they're currently behind on payments, then they would be eligible. They just need to provide supporting documentation. And that could be a mortgage statement, for example, or a statement from the condo association, or utility bill showing that they're behind. And the next eligibility criteria is their income. And this is kind of a 2-part inquiry. So households do have to be at or below 100% of AMI unless the person identifies as a member of a socially disadvantaged group. And so 100% of AMI is actually very, I mean, in my opinion, it's quite high in this region. So as you'll see, for one person, 100% of AMI in the DMV region is 99,000 plus, and then for 150% of AMI, it's 149,000 for one individual. And what we are hoping to do is to prioritize people who are low income, low to moderate income, who are much lower than that. And these are the people that we're referring to you, who are at the brink of foreclosure, but for HAF. And so because the eligibility criteria with regard to income is high, it means that there is the risk of potentially people with means or people who had a temporary short hardship may be able to get their applications in through the door pretty quickly. And we just want to make sure that the client community that we're concerned about and that we serve also get their applications in and get a fair shot. And then the fourth eligibility criteria is to attest that you've experienced a hardship, financial hardship due to COVID-19 since January 21st, 2020. The person does not have to have had COVID. I hope that that's clear, but that the pandemic has affected their finances in some way. And that may include a hardship that began before 2021, but continued after this date. And the attestation does say that it has to be a material effect. And just that's something to know when you're going over it with the client. But the examples are very broad and it's meant to be liberally construed. And the agency has told us that it should be liberally, they intend to construe it liberally, and that includes loss of employment, reduction in hours, temporary closures of their place of employment, increases in childcare expenses or childcare responsibilities that might affect the number of hours that they could work, certainly illness and death, and quarantine based on diagnosis of COVID-19, having to perform essential work, and other COVID-19 related cause or financial trouble.
Shirley, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
This is Jody. On these examples, for example, loss of employment or death, or any of them, frankly, does it have to be the homeowner who is applying for half, or does it just need to be someone in their household? So for example, if there was an earner in their household who has passed away, but the homeowner's still alive, would that qualify?
Let me pull up the attestation, because Jenny, I don't know if you have thoughts on this. I think if it's a household member, it should also satisfy this requirement, but material reduction in income or material increase in living expenses associated with the pandemic is created. Yeah, I think if it's a household member and that household member was previously contributing to your finances in some way, and they were contributing to like mortgage payments, for example, or utility payments, then that would satisfy that requirement.
Yes, I agree. Okay. So let's just talk a little bit about the mechanics of the HAF application. So we have linked here the HAF website. The application is solely online. So the way it works is that applicants will need to create a profile, which does require an email address, and then essentially go through a process whereby they do sort of a short screener, pre-screener, which essentially covers those 4 basic eligibility criteria that Shirley just walked through. And then assuming the homeowner, meets those 4 eligibility criteria, then the whole application portal is essentially open to them and they can start filling out their application. And so for some of our clients, it really varies in terms of people's use of technology and email. And so one of the things that we are hoping that you all can help our clients and your clients do if they need assistance with this is some of the tech aspects of it. So for example, if someone, might need help creating, a free Gmail account so that they can sign up for the portal, that would be something that would be great if you could assist your clients with, and then sort of just kind of navigating that online process and helping figure out how to upload documents, things like that, because it is all sort of on this online platform. So like I said, essentially, once you pass the screening and you get to the whole application, then, there's a series of questions that are part of the application, and each section has associated documents that you have to upload. So the link that Shirley put in the chat, and I believe Sylvia sent out in her email, earlier today has that checklist of documents. And so, what we've been doing and what I think is helpful to do as you have these sort of intro calls with your clients is sort of preview for people what types of documents they're going to need, because, some of them they may have on hand, other ones might be a little bit more challenging to get, might take a little bit of time. So it's helpful to have people kind of go ahead and start gathering those documents if it looks like they meet the basic eligibility criteria and you're going to proceed with helping them apply. And I actually also did just want to mention I think the HAF website itself is actually quite user friendly and really sort of walks through this basic eligibility criteria and what you need to apply in pretty thorough detail. So that's also just a really good resource as you're talking this through with your clients. But we did also, and prospective clients, but we did also share a sort of checklist that you can use that has questions and walks you through the basic eligibility criteria. So that's another sort of resource as you're trying to figure out whether homeowners meet this sort of threshold screening requirements to go ahead and apply. Housing counseling requirement, just wanted to make everyone aware of this because as you're assisting people, this is likely to come up. But basically the way it works in terms of mechanics is that once someone completes an application, they will get contact information for a local housing counseling agency. And for a certain subset of applicants, housing counseling is actually a required component of the program in order to get a half payment if you're approved. And I think, what should happen is once the person submits an application, they should get an email from the program letting them know whether or not they are required to have housing counseling. But essentially, the situation where someone would be required to have housing counseling is where they have a pretty high mortgage to income ratio, so 50% or more, and they were behind prior to the pandemic. Like I said, it should be obvious in that your client should get a communication from the agency saying, you need to complete this housing counseling and here's your organization. But you can also sort of be thinking about that if you're looking at the numbers and you see that someone has a high mortgage to income ratio and was also behind pre-pandemic, you can sort of let them know that that is going to be a requirement. But the good news is that it does not have to happen before the application is submitted. And yes, good question, Greg. Yes, that is free of charge for sure. A bunch of different organizations throughout the city. Although I think our understanding is right now, if you're in the required housing counseling bucket, you are likely to get assigned to a specific organization that is called Housing Counseling Services. Okay, so this is just a little bit more of the sort of mechanics of what will happen once a complete application is submitted. So our understanding is that the agency is going to be prioritizing applications for households that are lower income, so who have income below 60% of area median income. So just something to be aware of. In terms of updates and additional documents and things like that. The way the system is set up is that applicants will get an email notification, and they may also get text message notifications as well, notifying them if they have, edits or additional documents or things that are needed. And the timeline for that is once a notification goes out, the homeowner has 15 calendar days to make any edits that are required or provide additional information. And what we have been doing at Legal Aid, and what we would strongly encourage all of you all to do, is that when you're helping someone fill out an application, there is a space in the application itself for you to indicate that you're an advocate or someone helping the homeowner apply, and you can include your contact information. And basically what that does is it ensures that email updates that go out to the client, to the homeowner, also go out to you. And so particularly if you have a client who doesn't use email regularly, or my guess is no one checks email more than lawyers, right? So it'd be great for all of you to be getting those emails in real time so that you can also sort of be on top of the status of the application and follow up with your clients about any additional documents or information that would be needed. And then, like I said at the outset, if and when someone is approved for payment, the payments will be made directly to the mortgage company, the HOA, you know, whoever the payee is. And one other sort of mechanics point on this, the portal is set up so that you know, after you've applied, you can log in and check the status of your application. So you can sort of see whether it's under review, whether, you know, edits are being requested, whether you're approved, pending payment, things like that. So that's something that you can kind of check, and it is probably a good idea to kind of regularly just, you know, have something on your calendar to go back and check on that in case there are any updates about status.
Jenny, can I add one thing?
Yeah.
The application is also designed in a way that you can come back to it. So you can work on portions of it, save it, and then come back. And you can also jump around. So if you don't have a particular document but can upload it later, then you can move on to other parts that you are prepared to complete, which is, I think, helpful. You just have to make sure to save the parts that you're working on. It doesn't autosave.
And, you know, we'll talk about this at the end. We're going to have office hours and, of course, encourage all of you to contact us if you have questions. But the portal does actually also have a chat feature where you can try to ask a housing counselor a question in the moment. So that can also be a tool if you're trying to, you know, you're working with a client, you just want to try to get some quick information. Okay. So this wanted to just give everyone a, you know, sort of breaking news update because it very much relates to homeowners who have pending HAF applications. So Legal Aid has been involved over the past 2.5 years in advocating with the DC Council to, you know, sort of initially get DC's local foreclosure moratorium set up, and then, you know, throughout the course of the pandemic extended as, you know, when things were still bad, and more recently as we were waiting for the HAF program to open fully and be available to homeowners. And we were sort of down to the wire yesterday on what was going to happen with forward-looking protections for homeowners. But the good news is that yesterday the council passed legislation that is awaiting Mayor Bowser's signature that has some pretty great protections for homeowners who apply for the HAF program. The amendments that were passed yesterday are not effective until the mayor signs them. So we will kind of follow up with more information about, you know, the specifics of the new protections. But basically the sort of overarching idea is that if a homeowner submits a HAF application before September 30th, and they provide proof of their HAF application to, you know, their mortgage lender, their condo association, you know, whatever the relevant entity is, they will be protected from the mortgage company or other entity initiating or continuing foreclosure. And so basically the, you know, policy goal is for people to have a chance to submit their applications, have them reviewed, you know, get the payments if it turns out they're approved before a foreclosure can proceed. And so again, like I said, we'll follow up with sort of the more of the specifics on that, but wanted to make everyone aware of a baseline of that sort of framework of protections that is going to be in place.
And this is just some guidance about what we have in mind in terms of the timing of how long things we expect to take. So it might take some time to connect with the clients, especially with the holiday weekend. Also, sometimes people are just a little more receptive to certain ways of communication. So if you try calling and realize that you've called and left a couple messages but haven't heard back, I strongly encourage you to try texting instead. Many more people are responsive to text messages than they are to cold phone calls. We have, of course, like informed these prospective clients that they should expect to hear from you. But at the same time, you know, I screen my calls myself, and I know that some of our clients do as well. So hopefully within 7 to 10 days, you will have connected with the client and perhaps even had the retainer signed. And then it might take a week or 3 weeks, or even, you know, it might take a while to actually get the documents compiled, and it varies a lot case to case. So you may be working with someone who already has an email account. You may be working with someone who already has online access to their mortgage statements. They might already have access to their utility account online, or you may be working with someone who has none of those things. So it may vary a lot person to person, and that's just something to understand and be aware of. And so it might be that it might be easy to get some of the documents, but then other documents, you know, are only being sent by hard copy through the mail, and there's a delay in the mail process, receipt of the mail. And what we have found to, you know, depending on clients' comfort levels, sometimes, you know, like Jenny mentioned, we might help people set up their email accounts. We might even sometimes, if clients are comfortable, help them set up online accounts so that they can access their mortgage statements online. And it really is about, you know, building the trust. I think there is a lot of hesitancy about electronic means sometimes. And so if that's not something that your client wants to do, sometimes they're more comfortable with fax. And sometimes you may want to meet the person in person or work through a courier service. And then with regard to deadlines of when to submit the application, it is the kind of thing that you can start working on one day and pick up again the next day, and then pick up again at the week later. Once you've got, you know, piecemeal putting in each document and uploading it as you get it. But we're hoping that everything would be submitted at least by August 15th. If sooner, you know, if you happen to be working with a client who's already got everything ready to go, you know, they've got their documents, you know, excellent. And if you're ready for the next client, even better, you know. So I think that August 15 is what we think, you know, it may potentially, if you've got a client who doesn't have any of the online access, it might take a little longer. Hopefully it would be submitted by then. Sort of the drop dead deadline is the September 30th deadline, and that's kind of got legal ramifications if someone doesn't have their application submitted by September 30th. And those legal ramifications are what Jenny mentioned. So that protection's not in, the current status of the foreclosure moratorium is being amended. And once it's amended, the September 30th deadline is going to be the deadline by which people have to have submitted their application in order to have continuing protections. So that means if someone submits their application on October 1st, under the new amendments, they're not going to have any foreclosure protections. So it's kind of like, you know, the most firm deadline. And for folks that are working with people who live in condos and need assistance with condo dues, I think that is the highest risk situation. And so if you're working with clients who live in condos and are facing potential foreclosure as a result of being behind in condos, those are high priority applications and ones that we would absolutely want to make sure meet that deadline. And we can, I can explain, I don't know if people are curious, but basically condo associations can foreclose much more fast than mortgage services. So helpful links, I think. This is the HAF website that Jenny shared earlier. I strongly encourage everyone, if you're comfortable doing so, to actually create like use your own email. I mean, not submit an application, obviously, but I did this myself to sort of navigate the application portal to see like what the tabs look like, to see what the drop-down menus look like. There's a couple like quirks where you have to, there's a question like, are you behind on mortgage payments? And if you say yes, the next step is to select a button like add mortgage assistance. So there's little things like that, I think, that are helpful to just know in advance. So you can play around with the application portal without actually submitting an application. And then there's also an FAQ that has some helpful information. But the most critical information other than the application itself is the document checklist, which sets out the documents to compile so that, you know, when you submit the application, it is possible to have all the documents ready and then just sit down and submit the application within one go. And then the term sheets, that's the basically the legal document that the DC Housing and Department of Housing Community Development sent to the Treasury, and that's what they're bound by. And so if you have, you know, legal questions, technical questions, that is probably what Jenny and I would be referring to with regard to like eligibility questions or, you know, dollar amount caps, AMI questions. That's the term sheet that DHCD sends to Treasury. And then there's the Office of Tax and Revenue Real Property Database. This is all public record, and you can. This is an easy way to actually prove home ownership, and you can put in the address. You can pull the tax bill. It's also a way to issue spot if someone's behind on their property taxes. For the most part, people's mortgages. People pay their taxes and insurance through their mortgages for the most part. But for people who, some elders, some seniors have paid off their mortgages. And so if they are, you know, responsible separately for their taxes, their property taxes, and they may not know that they're behind on payments or may not think to include it in their HAP application, this can be a way to issue spot to see if they're current on their taxes. Any questions? Thank you all so much again. I'll share this little backstory, Layla. I hope you're comfortable with me sharing. So the whole reason this project came about is I was sitting at the Miller and Chevalier table at the Servant of Justice dinner with Layla, and I met Layla there, and she mentioned that she helped with the State EC clinic and like helped people with applications. And I was like, well, that's interesting because we have this homeowner program opening soon. Would Miller and Chevalier perhaps be interested in helping with that? And Layla like absolutely followed up the very next day, and here we are.
Yeah, we're so excited, and it seems like you've done so much of the legwork for us. So hopefully this is going to be really smooth. But if not, it looks like we'll call you on your office hour.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and we are all learning together because this program launched a week ago. So yeah, we are all figuring this out, and I think it'll probably be a two-way street in the sense that you may learn things and share with us things that, you know, you do something with a client and figured out like this is a little quirk that you know, we at Legal Aid haven't seen yet, and so I think we're really excited about this. Expanding the capacity for, you know, homeowners who can get assistance for HAP.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned to Jody at the beginning of the call, but I don't think everyone was on yet, we're Kitty's out this week, but she has assigned the clients to M&C lawyers, and I'm going to provide that list to Legal Aid so that they can get started with sending us kind of the information they have on the clients. So I guess stay tuned for an email probably tomorrow, it sounds like, with that information.
Yeah, thank you, Layla. I think we will hopefully be able to get them all out tomorrow. If not, but by tomorrow, certainly by the end of the week. And then Sylvia, did you send out the link already for the office hours or no? I don't know if you've received, but we are going to set up.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So you all, just like you all received a link from an invitation from Sylvia for today's meeting, you all will receive a link for Thursday, July 7th from 2 to 3, and that we're going to set up. We know it's pretty quick, but we want to just check in pretty quickly to make sure that folks are not having difficulty connecting with the clients or, just kind of getting started, and I'll give you a chance to look at some of the materials. So we're just going to have open office hours. Shirley will be taking the lead, and folks can come or not come as you decide, and ask questions, and we will record that as well so that folks who can't make it will be there. But the idea is just to connect, make sure things are going smoothly, and see what sort of questions are coming up. And then going forward, we find with these sorts of projects, as opposed to sending an individual custody case or something, rather than one-on-one mentoring, we find the office hours method works pretty well, because then everyone has the people have a lot of the same questions, and we have the opportunity to have everyone hear the answers all at one time. So kind of going forward, we'll see how it goes and see how much support you all need. And if we want to set up office hours, on a weekly basis or every other week or something like that, we can sort of figure it out together, what sort of support works best for you all. But we will also provide our individual contact information, and you can certainly contact us in between office hours if need be. So I think that's it. Shirley, Jenny, anything else?
I think so, other than just thank you all so much for being willing to work with our client community on this project. It's really exciting. We really appreciate it.
Sylvia, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you all
Okay.
covered it really well, and we'll be getting the referrals out to you later this week.
Super. Thank you so much, everybody.
And
Thank
you
you.
all
Thank you.
obviously can talk with each other as you go through the process, because you'll all be working on applications and you'll all be using the same portal as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention, although the going through the process of determining eligibility is part of what you all will be doing, this first set of folks that we are sending to you, it's about 7 clients, and these are folks who had previously contacted legal aid for a matter related to potential foreclosure or mortgage issues. And only to say that, although we have not done the full screening for each applicant, that's what you all will be doing. We're pretty confident that, all of these folks very likely will be eligible unless, they won the lottery in between. Yes, a few days ago when we called them and when you call them. So we expect that folks will be eligible. And if one of your clients doesn't appear to be eligible for some reason, we definitely would ask that you kind of reach back out to us just to make sure that, something wasn't overlooked, because our expectation is that this first batch of clients will definitely, most likely all be eligible. We will talk with Kitty and Layla and you all, going forward, once we sort of get a little bit under our belt and get, are comfortable with the process. It's possible we'll start trying to refer folks to you all that are new folks contacting legal aid, and there may be a higher likelihood that they don't necessarily meet all of the eligibility criteria. But as I said, this first batch of clients are folks that we've had some prior contact with and are pretty confident that they are good candidates for the program.